I cannot complain about my job in the slightest, as I love everything about it, from writing my reviews, editing videos, and of course, playing games. But if there is one thing that has been affected by my decision to take a gap year to try and make it in the world of both journalism and YouTube, it's just how little time I get to play Monster Hunter these days. Thankfully, Monster Hunter Stories released this week, and as a huge fan of the world of Monster Hunter, I've been looking forward to sinking into the couch and revisiting this 3DS remake. What's it like? Gather some herbs, put on your riding spurs, and saddle up as I review Monster Hunter Stories on Nintendo Switch. Before we ride off into the sunset, would you mind liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel? It's the best way that smaller outlets like What's It Like can get found, and I can't thank you enough for doing so. I also want to say a special thank you to the people who shouted me a coffee. That actually allowed me to purchase this game for review, and I'm very humbled by your wonderful support. Monster Hunter Stories was released back in 2016 in a surprising monster collectathon RPG adventure that many people dismissed as jumping aboard the Pokemon train. But this would be an unfair comparison. While we do have to draw parallels from Monster Hunter Stories and Pokemon, Monster Hunter Stories fleshes out the Monster Hunter world from a different perspective, where monsters, or monsties, as they call it in-game, can be friends to fight alongside instead of prey to hunt. Throughout your journey, you'll encounter some familiar faces, or teeth in this case, which you can battle and collect to create a party of monsties while you uncover the mysteries of the Black Shroud, an evil force spreading throughout the world. It's a more light-hearted approach to the traditional mainstream titles, and instead of an endless series of hunts, it follows a more linear progression and story. This isn't really a bad thing though, because despite the linear progress, the game is still fairly open world, allowing you to explore every nook and cranny at your leisure to gather crafting materials and, of course, collect specific monster eggs. You stack up on your quests in town, of which many are repeatable, and go about battling, gathering, and exploring. Littered throughout the world are monster dens that contain eggs that you can steal to hatch and raise to add to your party, allowing you to build a unique team. These monsters will also have special overworld abilities like jumping, flying, and smashing rocks, very similar to the Pokemon series utility moves. The interesting departure from the Pokemon series, however, is that when you go into battle, you only have your lead monster to fight with, and are unable to switch between different monsters until you're back out into the world screen. While this may sound limiting, it creates an interesting strategy for building your team to compensate for enemies' elemental types when heading into battle. There are a few mechanics that unlock during the course of the game that allows further customizations, and it does allow you to stick with the monsters that you truly love, despite the elemental restrictions they may appear to have when you first acquire them. Combat is turn-based and consists of stylish action sequences spurred on by the rock, paper, scissors combat dynamic. You choose speed, technical, or power attacks when going up against your opponent. You have limited control over your monstie, who will choose one of these attacks too, depending on its dominant style. This is where I found one of the most interesting aspects of the game come into play: Bond. You see, occasionally your monstie will mimic you and switch up its style, or alternatively, your monstie might automatically switch up its style, and it's up to you to use your intuition to decide if you want to follow suit. Picking the same attack style counters your opponent and will result in a powerful double attack, allowing you to build your bond. These bonds can be saved to ride your monstie in combat, or give it specific commands and use skills. Riding allows you to pick the attack style for both of you, and allows you to not only gain the advantage in battle, but access powerful rider moves that act as summons, similar to something like Final Fantasy. It's so satisfying when you and your monstie synchronize up and start landing some hard-hitting combos, sometimes even toppling your enemies, landing even bigger critical hits. Littered in the action are also power struggles, which are mini-games like tapping an A button to overpower your enemy, or rotating the right stick to use your fire breath. Winning these mini-battles awards valuable bond points and can change the tide of battle, making each bout feel exciting and dynamic. While at first you may feel like you're dominating the role of being a master rider, there will be times when you bite off more than you can chew. And there's sections of the story that will make you feel like you ran headfirst into a bulldrome, requiring you to take stock of where you're at, do some side quests, and upgrade your gear. This can result in spending an hour going back to grind and catch up if you're the type to just try and blast through the story. But even my worst case of being out-leveled was fixed in an hour of gameplay thanks to repeatable and focused secondary quests, getting you up to speed quick. I did find that when continuing from a failed battle, the game doesn't restore your hearts, meaning that you have to rest in town or find a Meowster encampment to restore them. Graphically, I personally think the game looks great due to the vibrant art style. Sure, the models may look a bit low poly, but they suit the comical and cartoon nature style of the game, especially when in combat. Those who look closely will see some 2D artifacts around, which may appear jarring, especially to Rise and World veterans who've been spoiled by highly detailed models and locales. But Monster Hunter Stories just drew me in with its bright palette. It performs well in both docked and handheld mode, with no noticeable issues that I came across during my playthrough with the game. For my vision impaired monster riders, there are no accessibility options, but as mentioned, the game is bright and colourful and has a high contrast of colours. As always, I recommend further research may be required to find out if Monster Hunter Stories suits your needs. In the remake, there are a plethora of new additions to the remaster, including all of the DLC, with the exception of the limited Zelda DLC, Japanese and English voice acting, music jukebox, and plenty of concept art for you to look at, but that's best kept as a treat until after you finish the game, as it may contain some spoilers. While I personally thought it might be hard to revisit the first game, especially after thoroughly enjoying the second, it surprisingly didn't feel like a backward step, although there were some relics from the 3DS age left over, like smaller areas and more frequent loading screens. At $45 Australian, Monster Hunter Stories is a decent price for a huge adventure that will last you around 40 hours. There's plenty to collect, explore, find and upgrade while completing the main quest, and there's plenty more post-game content in DLC monster battles when you're done. Monster Hunter Stories is a fantastic adventure that further fleshes out the world of Monster Hunter with an engaging story that shows a different perspective from the hunt. Its mechanics may seem shallow on the surface, but uncover a surprisingly deep and, most importantly, fun battle system that's over the top, stylish, and addictive. Despite the frequent loading screens and graphical artifacts, Capcom has done an amazing job bringing this 3DS title to the Switch, finally allowing those who started with Stories 2 to see where it all began, and will hopefully bring even more players into this fantastic franchise. So, what's it like? Monster Hunter Stories is like Pokemon crossed with Monster Hunter. I award it an 86 out of 100. Thanks so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. The best way you can support me is to like and subscribe and continue watching my content if you enjoy it. But if you do want to go that bit extra, you can buy me a coffee or join our Patreon, which shows you behind the scenes of this channel. Thanks again.